Hi there, and welcome back to the channel Machining with Joe, a channel where I share with you guys my journey as a beginner machinist and any tips and tricks I may pick up along the way. So in today's video I'm going to be fitting the DRO onto the milling machine. So I'm basically going to run through all the components that I've got in this DRO kit and then give you a brief run through of how I'm fitting it to the mill and any problems I might incur, how I'm going to get over them. So stay tuned if you're thinking about fitting a DRO to your mill. This video may just help you out. And if it does help you out, please think about hitting that subscribe button and help the channel grow. It really means a lot to me, guys. Right then, hopefully by the end of this video, all these parts that we've got laid out on the bench here will form together to make a functioning DRO on our milling machine. But to do that, we've got to work out exactly what all these components do, how they work together to make our milling machine DRO kit fully functional. So let's look at the brains of the operation. This display screen shows the X and Y positions of your milling machine, along with a lot of other functions that are going to be really useful on the milling machine. So unlike my lathe DRO, this has got so many more functions, it's going to make using the mill a lot easier. So as a quick summary of just how this works, on the back we have two ports. We also have our power in and our on and off. Basically these two ports here connect up to your glass scales, and when those glass scales move, it displays the movement on here as a digital readout, hence the name DRO. So what are these glass scales I'm talking about? So we've got two on the bench. We're going to look at the smallest one just because it's easier to show you guys. And this is the scale that we're going to be using for our DRO kit. So it's a glass scale. So here you've got your encoder, which reads along a glass scale in here and converts that to a digital frequency that the DRO can then read and convert to a number for us. So I've got two of these scales. This is going to be for my Y position and the long one is going to be for the X position. So for our DRO to fully function, these are the three main components we're going to need. But of course we're going to need some way of fixing these to our mill. So we've got a load of fixing brackets that can be used to mount the scales to the mill, and we've also got a hinge bracket like this which can be attached to the display screen and mount anywhere of your choice. So I'm going to be mounting this to the wall, and once that's mounted I can then put the digital display up there. So I think that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to get the digital display mounted on the wall, and then I think I'm going to start at fitting the X-axis onto the mill and see how we're going to mount this all up. So mounting the actual DRO display screen is really straightforward and easy. All I've done is I've drilled two holes into the brick wall and put two raw plugs in there and literally just attached them with two Phillips head screws. So that's on there, and then the display screen literally just slots in here. So I suppose the only logical thing to do before we start fitting all the scales to the mill is get this thing powered up and plug them in and make sure everything works as it should do, because I don't really want to fit them all to the mill and find out they've been broken in transportation, because this came all the way from China, took 2 to 3 weeks to get here, so you never know, it may have had an impact and broke any of the glass tubing inside the scales. So we'll check that now, and fingers crossed, all being well, we can carry on fitting them to the mill. Moment of truth then, will it or won't it? Oh, we've got a beat, that's a good sign. So everything's loaded up. I've got my X and Y scales plugged in, so I'm just going to zero them out, move them around and see what travel we've got on them and make sure everything works okay. So we'll start off with the Y one. Okay, so everything's moving on there. Right, I'm going to zero it there. Right, the zero function seems to work okay. I'm now going to move it all the way along the scale and see what travel we've got. So we've got about 250mm of travel there, so that's great. And now we'll check the x-axis just to make sure all that works. And we've got 650mm of travel there. So we know both our scales are working and they're accurate to what I ordered them to. Next thing to do now is start getting these mounted to the milling machine then. So to mount our x-axis glass scale, I'm going to be mounting it to the front of the machine here, and to do so I've fixed some 2-inch alley angle iron to the edge of the machine here. So I've got one here and one down here. So by doing that, it allows us to fix this to the front of our machine, and with that fixed there, makes it really easy just to mount the encoder down here. So I'm going to be getting on with that now. I'm going to be drilling some holes into this and bolting this on here, and then once that's done I can go about mounting my encoder down onto the bottom of the machine there. So we've got the x-axis all mounted up now. We've got the encoder mounted down here. So in theory this should all work now. And it does. So that's the x-axis all pretty much done. Just wind it all the way along and make sure it all works. Just a quick pointer for anyone that comes across this problem. So I've just wound my table all the way to one side and all the way back to the other, and halfway through the reading actually cut out and just stopped working completely. The numbers wouldn't move anymore, and what I've actually realised is the tolerance between this encoder and the glass strip in there has to be really tight. So what I've done, I've had to loosen off both the bolts at either end and just wiggle it sort of side to side, just to get it so it runs perfectly level all the way along the table. So if you're fitting one of these kits and it stops working for some reason, don't worry too much, check that out first, and fingers crossed that should be your issue sorted. Just thought I'd show you guys a little bit of a closer view of what we've actually done today. So we've got these brackets here. I've just mounted the guard on the front there. Down there we've got the sensor, or pickup as such, and then the end guard there. So the only thing really I'm left to do now is I've got to trim this down because it protrudes just above the table slightly there. So that'll be a little job that needs to get done. And we've got all the wires sorted out there. Right, really happy that I've managed to get all the x-axes sorted. That's great. It's all working now down the full length of the table, so that's brilliant. Unfortunately, that's all I'm going to be able to do today, guys. Just because of work commitments, I've not actually been able to spend that much time in the workshop just recently, and because of that I'm going to have to split this video into a two-parter. So in next week's video I'm going to be cracking on with getting the y-axis all sorted, and then once that's done I can have a little play around with it, see how accurate this DRO is, and hopefully that's going to make milling so much easier, because I won't have to worry about converting the inches, which this mill is, over to metric. I'll just be able to look at the digital display and go from there. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. But for now, see you in the next one.